But didn't you say that Savior was your least favorite song on that record going into it, and you didn't even want to put it on the album?
Yeah, that's you've done your research, so it's 100% true, actually. So I don't know what it was. I don't know. I think that sometimes the artist is too close to the project, and so Savior was not a song I was thinking about a lot on that record. Which, when I look back, it's probably a good thing because the most sometimes the most important art you do is the art that you don't spend too much time thinking about. You just put it out there, and that's kind of the thing that people respond to. I was laboring over other songs, and I wasn't really laboring over that song. That one just kind of just came out. I think maybe I attached the labor to the importance. You know what I mean? Because I was laboring over this, because I was putting more work into these songs, that must mean these songs are more important. Kind of forgetting about this one that wasn't that laborious, So
When you say work, right, is that getting it perfect? Is that getting the lyrics just right? Is it sonics? Like, what is that?
all those things, you know what I mean? When you hear the song back and you're like, there's something not right about this. And it might be the tempo, too fast, too slow. It might be like a lyric that's just cringy to me, or just like, oh no, I don't want to say that. You know what I mean? It might be something the way the guys respond to it. They're like, this is cool, but this always feels unnatural when we go from this part to this part, So sometimes you have to massage the songs, and sometimes you don't. Sometimes it's like obvious to everyone in the room. It's probably like you guys, you come up with a good idea and you see everyone's body language in the room when they're like, that's a great idea. You know what I mean? It didn't require a lot of labor and effort.
But did Savior get that idea, that reaction?
I don't think it did. I think it came out and it was like, yes, it's a good song. You know what I mean? Like, but it wasn't like, I'll tell you, we wrote that record, and the song Re-Education, that was the first thing that us and the label, even before we went into the studio, they were like, that's your song. That's our single, Re-Education Through Labor. And to the point where we actually finished the song first before we even continue the rest of the record in order to deliver it to them so they could be ready and do whatever they have to do with it. And so we're like, okay, so it's Re-Education. That's like our jam on this record. And then the second single on that record, which is escaping me at the time, but it was not Savior. We then spent time on that song. And by the way, now the record, at this point, the record is out. We're touring it. We're playing around the world. We're not playing Savior on stage. And in fact, we spent the entire Appeal to Reason touring campaign never playing Savior.
What?
Hold on.
So it was like,
What?
it was more or less like a deep cut on our record that wasn't, even after it was out, it wasn't totally like changing lives. You know what I mean?
But a hit record is like a tennis ball underwater. It will always make its way to the top.
So that's what happened. And so
How does it get there?
as we were wrapping up our touring for that record, the label was like, okay, let's, by the time you get to a third single, like resources are dwindling. You know what I mean? Like enthusiasm is dwindling. They're already moving on to like other projects. You know what I mean? This project they have been working on is now a year or two old. And we have no future touring plans, so they know that we're not going to be out at radio stations like really supporting it. So your third single is really where the least amount of resources get put into. It's like, not to call it a throwaway, but like, it's just the way the business works, right? And so they're like, okay, listen, you guys are wrapping up this record. We had a great campaign. Re-Education Through Labor went well. I think the song Hero of War, which is more of an international like hit, and there was one other one on there.
Audience of One was
Audience
the
of
second.
One, maybe. Okay, thank you. Was the second single. We put a lot of effort and resources into that. Like, as you guys are like walking away from this record and closing the door on it before you begin your next chapter, let's put the song Savior out. I think it's on the track listing. It might be, this is the last song on the record, or is it like it's somewhere? It might even be like way down there.
Savior's 11.
Okay, yeah, so it's way down there. It's way down there. And we're like, yeah, let's do it. That sounds good, And they put it out as a single and sort of serviced it to radio as we were like walking in our doors with our suitcases, like ready to wrap up the record. And then just being home and getting the emails and the phone calls like, hey, this thing is like starting to get some legs. And we're like, oh, well, that's cool. And then like, no, it's like really getting legs. We're like, oh, well, we already toured the record. Like, yeah, but like people are loving this song. And then we spent the next like 6 to 8 months already thinking about our next record, watching radio take off with this song while we were mostly home because we'd already toured the world like twice at that point on that record. And then, so we came back to the next record with a whole different number of fans, I guess.
How does that record though influence what you make immediately next? Because you're writing it while you're watching this thing, and
Yeah.
it being a record that is, not necessarily about something that is going on in society, but maybe more personally driven.
So that element was always part of Rise Against, even from like the first records, So I think that for us, it was a surprise, but it wasn't a total shock because we were writing songs, like even like Audience of One, you know what I mean? Like there were songs that had nothing to do with the politics, you know what I mean? And we allowed ourselves to break outside of those guidelines of like, this doesn't need to be like, maybe like a Rage Against the Machine kind of band where it's like, this is 100% politics all the time, And even that would be a stretch because there are some songs that are like sort of personal and rage. But like, we allowed ourselves to just write what we wanted to write. You know what I mean? Like even with a song like Swing Life Away was just kind of like an acoustic ballad, you know what I mean, about friendship and, that kind of thing. And it was outside of what the layman might think of what Rise Against is, And because I think we threw those curveballs early on, it gave us permission to be whatever band we wanted to be. And then even though maybe like the press would grab onto like the name Rise Against, I mean, we named our band Rise Against. So like, you know what I mean? Like we're sort of in some ways defining ourselves just out the gate with like a t-shirt and like whatever. But I think for people who know who we are and our fans, there's layers beyond that, you know what I mean? And Savior was or is one of those layers.
When you look back, are you happy that that's a record that you're defined by?
Yeah. Yes. I love that record.
It's timeless.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. I love that record. At that point, we had made it in the same studio we had made our previous 3 records, I want to say.
I got to say, you have a crazy record deal. I didn't even know they did record deals like this back then. I mean, didn't you have like an 8 or 9 record deal with DreamWorks and you did most of them in one studio?
We had
7? Was it 7?
It was a 5-record deal. But we did all 5 of those records and walked away, on friendly terms from the label. All of them recouping.
That's an all-in-one studio.
Except for the very first one, I want to say. The other 4 were all done at a studio called The Blasting Room in Fort Collins, Colorado, an hour north of Denver, in an old furniture warehouse with our hero and legend, Bill Stevenson, from the band Black Flag and the Descendants.
It's so fascinating. Like there was rumor that like you'd even have to turn in demos to get approval. Is that real?
That's real.
They were just that artist friendly. They believed in whatever you were doing.
So yes, I mean it was either artist friendly or they kind of forgot about us.
Sick for you though.
It was sick for us. I don't know how to like impress upon people because I'm not even sure that this is believable or plausible. But like, yeah, like all those records you hear, like anything you've heard on the radio, like that's what we turned in as a final product.